you tired of the daily hustle and bustle, the endless traffic just to get your little one to a good school? GMS Snap Bingo offers a unique blend of academic excellence with a holistic child development in both nursery and primary. We provide a national curriculum with an international touch. Enroll your child today by visiting our campus along Trinity College, Dabigo Road. GMS Snap Bingo, where every child's potential is a reality. Because we care.
Welcome to Second Take with IDK. My name is MABEL Runji. So glad you could join us today with the man himself, IDK Isma Dakaba Chigongo. I know you said I will never learn how to pronounce your name, so that was a blow, but
glad to be here.
Glad to be here. Isma, someone is asking here, naye gwe. Let me read it as it is. Ani yakuzala musajja gwe omanyi ebyemizannyo. And that is from Samuel_Uganda.
I'm a son of two teachers. My dad has since passed on. But my mom is alive. Two brilliant teachers. Both of them taught through the school system, rose to be education officers. Since they are now retired. These days we keep celebrating. Every time we are celebrating is 70 something, 70 what for mom, yeah. But glad, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching.
And you can tell them you are Musoga because there are a number of comments here. Kisache Joshua says, English version is fire. I like the way Isma digresses in all areas of life. He's so well versed in all aspects. And then Machide Cartoon says, legendary Isma switched from Luganda to English so quick. But Luganda is not your... you picked up Luganda from school?
I think most of us know a lot of Luganda. I was actually raised in Masaka. I lived in Masaka for a very, very long time of my formative years and my later years in high school. So that says a lot that the kind of Luganda I speak, you would not even tell I'm not one.
Yeah.
The kind of conversations that I can have.
Okay, and then there was someone who says, if I can, I should be able to find it. Let me just read all the other shows, all the other messages. Thank you so much for sending them here. Mbazira says, your podcasts are great for my township trips. Keep it up. We have Agre who says his first match of Manchester United was the 1999 final drama. And because he loved red as a color, the team stuck in his heart. And even through their latest misery, he still holds the nostalgia of the glory days and keeps hoping that if Arsenal has done it, then even them, they can do it. Joseph Serugunda says, thank you for the shows. Someone here says, they have been looking for you, Okumu Fabian, so it feels good after finding this channel. Please share this channel on your various social media platforms. So
and Okumu, hopefully you've already subscribed. When you found the channel, then you subscribe, hit the subscribe button.
And you will get, a notification whenever we drop a podcast. We have Hamza here who says, Bruno fully deserves that accolade given the fact that almost half a season he was playing in double pivot with Amorim's system, which hindered most of his abilities. And Walakida Child says, for the first time, you got something wrong. Well, Isma, every once in a while he gets things wrong, but that's okay. That shows you he's just human, he's not superhuman. So you can correct us. And he goes on to say Uganda drew with Kenya 1-1.
Well, the Tin Cranes, the under-17 national team who are playing the World Cup qualifier, I said Uganda won 1-0, but they conceded an equalizer. Thank you for following and being certain of what I said.
We have Drake watching from Busia. We have Ashira, I think. IDK and MABEL, thank you for your podcasts. I'm a huge fan. I've been an Arsenal supporter since 2005 when we won the FA Cup on penalties against United. I was a young kid, but watching Vieira scoring the last spot for Arsenal, everyone jubilating. He's a proud Ghana, but he spelled it as Gona. Anyway, then IDK, on the issue of dark football, we are all waiting, or we all watched the way PSG played their second leg against Bayern. The football was unpleasant to my view, but congratulations to the Gunners.
But that wasn't dark football, that was managing the game. I think the moment they scored, they just managed the game. It's totally different when you're playing boring football. Eh? Yeah, it's a totally different thing. You cannot compare what PSG were doing to what, for example, Vipers and Arsenal have delivered this season. Yet the two of them are champions. But I've stated repeatedly, for many people it doesn't matter. The generation of Ismail who thinks football should be entertaining are wrong. Yeah, the game these days is about winning, nothing more, because of the margins between winning and losing have become so huge financially. Yeah. That football is such a business that it no longer matters. When I first started watching the game, it was a lot different. Yeah, the money wasn't as much as it is now, and there were hardly even options, because I remember they were waited for the AFCON or waited for a Villa game. Yeah, it meant everything. But now, sport competes with other sports disciplines. Then you have crusades, and you have concerts. Yeah. There weren't as many back then, so I totally understand that the stuff has changed for people who are joining now. What they desire and want to find in sport or football is a lot different from what I wanted to find when I first started watching.
Okay. Yeah. Joseph here has a question. How do you compare a guy who has brought a team to third place to Raya, who through blood and sweat won a title? Those awards lack credibility. And then we have Fixed Plug, who says, I like the way Isma delivers sport. You are the man. Arnold also says he loves the show. And then Agri, we'll end with Agri. My question is for you. How do you manage to show neutrality towards football characters, mostly within Uganda? You discuss various topics without showing any sentimental or personal attachments, unlike most of your colleagues at the media house you work at.
I cannot speak for other colleagues, but for other people in the media realm. But I think my neutrality is that I have 23 hours after here to go and support my team. So whatever, I just come here for 1 hour and just give the two sides. And mine is never largely tell you what to do, what to think, but I'll be able to give you the two sides, and you make a call. Yeah. On what you think that I said. But glad that you're watching. You're saying something before I interrupted.
No, I wanted to say, the time I knew you way then when we were doing the morning show, you never said what team you supported. Yeah. I got to know, of course, as I've interacted with you, I've gotten to know. But yeah, you do have that level of balance, and you don't think with your heart. I think you think with your head.
I think I need to fall in love a bit more, because one of the things that helps you to think with your heart is love. And maybe my love bundles are not sufficient. I need to elevate that. When I do, then I should be able to think with my heart a bit more.
Not your head. Well, let's start with your head. One of the biggest games ever is coming up this weekend. PSG versus Arsenal. It's actually earlier than it usually is.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Kickoff is 7 p.m. on Saturday. Ordinarily, Champions League games or finals, even when they were moved from midweek to Saturday, would happen at around 10 p.m. So wherever you're watching the show, and I'm giving Ugandan time because we are shooting this show in Uganda. If you arrive at your Kafunda, where you watch football at 9 or 9:30 p.m., 9:30 p.m. you'll find the celebration for the title. You'll find the game in extra time. So the first assurance is that the game will start at 7 p.m. So I went to do some reading with UEFA, and UEFA actually state that they want to make the Champions League a lot more of a family event and enable people to travel early. So, because they want a lot of people to come to the game with their children, and that's how the tickets have been sold. If you bought a ticket and you're MABEL, and you're buying for a 12-year-old, you got some kind of preferential treatment, because you bring a child to the game.
So they're forward thinking.
Yeah. So they explain they want to make it a family affair. Then there is logistical reasons for people to be able to travel to Budapest and also probably get back home on the very day. So it's a lot different, and very curious decision because that implies that in most parts of Central Europe, the game will be kicking off at 5 p.m., which is around the time that most of the football happens. Because imagine with the Premier League that we watch here very often, the games that we watch at 6 p.m. is starting at 4 p.m. in the UK. The ones we watch at a late kickoff 7:30 p.m. is starting at 5:30 p.m. So they've tried to place the game in a time where most of Europe is watching or playing their game. So yeah, 5 p.m. Europe and 7 p.m. in Uganda. So I don't know whether it's convenient for us. Some of us love to watch our football and get back home at 1 a.m. Normally get back home happy, and we find the house very quiet and asleep. That gives us a lot of comfort, because sometimes when we come home early and you have to meet people like MABEL, then you're going to spend another 20 minutes in an argument whose destination you have no idea
where it will go.
Yeah.
Okay, so with your heart and maybe with your head, or if they are different, what is your head telling you and what is your heart telling you? Who is your favorite? Or is it the same person? Are your head and heart aligned this time?
I think PSG will start as favorites, because not often do teams play the Champions League final back to back. And once a team is able to play 2 Champions League finals in 2 years, and there hasn't been many who have defended the Champions League. In the recent era, you have to go back to only Real Madrid. And when they went and defended, they eventually won 3 in a row. That's how excellent they were. Because PSG are favorites, I think they'll be favorites. However, for me, the margins will be much smaller than people imagine. There will not be anything like last year's final when PSG beat Inter Milan by 5-0. Because while many of us knew PSG would be favorites, they went and blew the final open. Yeah, Inter Milan were barely competitive. So in terms of percentage, I'll put PSG 58%, Arsenal 42%.
In terms of confidence, Arsenal on the backdrop of winning after 22 years the English Premier League title, I'm sure their confidence is higher, but both of them are winners in their individual countries, respective countries. Who do you think will be more confident?
Wow, very difficult question. Very, very difficult question. I think Arsenal will be very confident, because unlike PSG, who have been very successful for a very long time, and they've won the league on multiple occasions and were pushed this year. They've also won one of the cup competitions, because France, like England, has 4 trophies at the end of the season. You have the Coupe de France, you have the trophies, the champions. I think they lost in one of those, won the other. Then, of course, you have the league and then the Champions League or the Europa League and whatever. So, because PSG have been near too often, I have a feeling that they will not be as confident about going back to back and winning this repeatedly, like an Arsenal side that will be very, very hungry. They do not do this very often. They've not played the Champions League final since 2006. They've only won their first league title after 22 years. So they'll be feeling much more confident about delivering this than they've ever been. But the game is not going to be won by what you feel in your heart. It's going to be largely about what you feel in your brain. There are even psychologists who argue that winning in sport starts with the mind, 85% of it, because winning, just like losing, is a culture. When you believe that you can do it, then you're going to be able to do it. And Arsenal now, after playing in the semi-final last year and losing to PSG, now they got over that hump and are into a final playing against the same team. They will be feeling a lot more confident now than they felt a year ago. And for me, that is one of the parameters I'll be looking at eventually for that final.
Okay, let's talk about some of the tactics. Arsenal, one of the credit that has been given to them in the English Premier League has been their very strong defense.
Yeah.
What tactics, okay, where do you think the game will be lost or won between PSG? We all know, of course, the attacking force that PSG are or is. We have Ousmane Dembele there, who is just like, I don't know who can stop him. But yeah, what should Arsenal do to win, or what should PSG do to win?
The best things about a final is that you cannot change much. You have to stick to the things that have worked for you for most of the season. So you expect the two teams not to change in terms of how they set up. Actually, maybe Arsenal have one major decision to make for that final. Do they go in with Miles Lewis-Skelly in midfield, or do they go in with Martin Zubimendi? Because that's been the major change towards the end of the season. The others do not change much. If Jurgen Timber is fit, he walks in. If Calafiori is fit, he walks into at left back. The central defensive partnership is not changeable. Then, maybe the other minor decision, I think, for the Arsenal is if Martin Odegaard plays as the number 10, then do you play Leandro Trossard off the left or Eberechi Eze? Because Eze then can come inside, then you have numbers in midfield. Because then the other two are easy to select, Gyökeres and Bukayo Saka. So I don't think you change much, and Mikel Arteta would know that teams do not change much for a final. So maybe the big call for me is going to be, is it Zubimendi? Is it Miles Lewis-Skelly? And you get the feeling that in the latter part of the season, it's got to be Miles Lewis-Skelly who starts the final. And the reason for that is that he's shown a lot more in terms of playing the ball forward than Zubimendi showed at the time when he lost his place in the starting team. He looked a bit tired and jaded, the brain was tired and the legs too. So Lewis-Skelly was playing the ball a lot more forward than Zubimendi was. So maybe for me that's the one major decision that Mikel Arteta faces ahead of that final. For PSG, they too have some big calls to make, and they could be two of them. We're already informed that Achraf Hakimi would not play in that final because of that injury he suffered in the semi, and he's also sweating over fitness to make the World Cup for Morocco. So if they go in with Zaire Emery, who has been the patch-up right back, moved from midfield to that position, and we know he didn't do too poorly when he played there against Bayern Munich, and that was against Luis Diaz, cannot be an easy job. No. Then that would imply that Fabian Ruiz walks straight back into midfield, because Fabian Ruiz has had a lot of injuries this season, but in the latter part of the season he's been fit, and they've given him some minutes. So you get Fabian Ruiz back in midfield to join Vitinha and João Neves, and then the front three for me picks itself. Kivicha Kvaratskhelia, and then you mentioned Ousmane Dembele and Desiree Doué. At least we all know they do not play with a center forward. They play with that fluid, moving front three. And Kvaratskhelia is one who doesn't get off his position. Normally will play on the left for the entire game. Then the other two, Desiree Doué and Dembele, keep on switching between center forward and the right wing. So even maybe they are saved by the major decision. If Hakimi was fit, for example, for the final, then the coach has to make a big call between Zaire Emery and Fabian Ruiz, who walks into the team. But at this stage, without any new communication that Hakimi will be there, then you think Zaire Emery stays at right back and saves everyone the debate about whether sticking with Zaire Emery, who has played in that midfield, is the right call if Fabian Ruiz is fit. And the good thing about Fabian Ruiz, for me, normally starting the game is that, and we saw that when he came on against Bayern, is the amount of support play he gives the left back. Remember, in his earlier years in Italy, Fabian Ruiz, when he played at Roma and I think Napoli, he was a left back or a left wing back. So he finds it much easier to support Nuno Mendes than someone else would. That's why you notice against Bayern, when he played in that second leg off a bench, and he came on and supporting the left back a bit more, Michael Olise did not have the kind of freedom. And now, if you're playing Arsenal, you cannot accord Bukayo Saka a one-on-one situation where he has one man to beat. So you play Fabian Ruiz because you have a lot more from him dropping to the left side. And that's with it with the players. But I think Arsenal win the game if they defend as good as they've defended in the entire season. Do not allow PSG those kind of spaces that they get, the kind of spaces that Desiree Doué, Dembele and Kvaratskhelia have created all season. That's one area for me. Two, you've got to get physical. Because for everything that PSG do week in, week out in the French League or in most of the games that they play throughout the season, they do not play against many teams that are very physical. So that is an area where Arsenal have got to show her up in that midfield. Declan Rice will be very critical. Because when you go into one crunching challenge and the next one, then they get to understand that this is not the usual football that they are playing. Three, the set pieces. Arsenal have been brilliant from them, and I remember giving them credit that their final goal this season, scored by Noni Madueke, was off a corner kick, just to emphasize how good they've been in that area of the pitch. And they've scored, 25 goals from set pieces this season in the Premier League. They've got to do that again. They've got to do that again in terms of where they place those set pieces and probably get one to go in. Also, they've got to deny PSG those kind of spaces they run behind the back line. Because the front three, Dembele, Doué and Kvaratskhelia, cause a lot of havoc or create a lot of spaces running behind the fullbacks and behind the defense. And that ball normally starts with the kind of control that Vitinha is able to get in midfield. And then he has the runners. And these runners have a lot of ability with the ball. They are able to take on and beat players and then get into the box. That's the other area that Arsenal have got to control. Because for everything that PSG are, and they can manage the ball very well, they are extremely lethal on the break when you have spaces in that backline. Because of a kind of pace and trickery that Desiree Doué, for example, has, and Ousmane Dembele, is that you're going to get into trouble if you commit numbers at the front and then they get onto the ball and they have one defender to beat. More often than not, maybe 9 out of 10 times, they are going to beat that one defender. And that's going to be a bit of trouble. So there's got to be a lot of discipline from the Arsenal. And we all know that PSG have that discipline. When people think of them as an attacking force, which they are, and you've seen the number of goals that they've scored, the front three, is that also do not forget to rewatch that second leg against Bayern. That when they choose to play with a lot more maturity and have numbers behind the ball and they have the command of Vitinha, who never looks out of place, who never really goes out of position, and the ability to organize that backline or to organize them when they lose possession, you've got to think that's also one area that everyone should be guided about. And when you think about Vitinha and the organization of that midfield with João Neves, do not forget that for all the credit that all of us give Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes, is that they have two very good centre-backs. I've mentioned here that I think Pacho is the next big star in defending in Europe. Their centre-back from Ecuador. Who they got, I think they signed him from Frankfurt 2 seasons ago. And then the other one is Marquinhos. The Brazilian, there's a time when I think was written off and looked to be in decline 2-3 years ago. I think for the past 2 seasons, I think he's revived his career. He's fitter now. Of course, he had a bit of injuries in that phase when they were competing for that position or when they were playing alongside Kimpembe, who is now out of the team eventually and had to leave after that horrific injury that he suffered. Is that together, they found a way, and both of them are both have a bit of brain and brawn, that when you get into a battle that is physical and pace, they'll be there. But when you get into something that requires a lot of thinking, it requires more brain than brawn, they will also be there. So when you want to look at the margins, who has the better 2 centre-backs, someone will argue maybe it's Saliba and Gabriel, but it's only because they played more together. They played longer together than the other two have. So the margins for me are that thin in terms of who eventually goes on to win the final.
Is there any wild card player you can pick for this final?
For Arsenal, for me, very easy to pick, Leandro Trossard. if they are going up against someone who is not a natural right back, who is not Hakimi, because if Hakimi is playing, he forces your left winger to defend. So you have to drop back, either into midfield or sometimes to drop as deep as a left back. But because, rather the right back, because PSG do not have Hakimi, who would have forced Leandro Trossard to defend, then I think the trump card is right there. Get Trossard for whatever minutes he gets in the game, whether as a starter or even coming off the bench. If he gets 30 minutes, I think for me is the wild card for Mikel Arteta. He's the one, and because of his ability to finish, he looks almost like the best finish on that Arsenal team. The few chances that he gets, he's bound to either hit the target or force a save. Yeah? So, my wild card for Arsenal has got to be Trossard. For PSG, and the wild card normally has to be one of the players, because when you discuss Arsenal, I think the first conversation in terms of goals is going to be Saka and Victor Gyökeres. Now, in terms of PSG, the first options in terms of goals is going to be Dembele and perhaps Kvaratskhelia, and Desiree Doué comes in third. But I'm going to pick Desiree Doué as the wild card because he does not waste as many chances as Dembele does. When he hits the target, normally the goalkeeper has to make a save. So I have an inclination for Desiree Doué as the wild card, or the trump card that Luis Enrique could rely on for this particular game.
Okay. And what would it mean for either PSG or Arsenal to win and maybe even to lose? I mean, of course, for Arsenal, I can imagine it will be, they've never won the Champions League. So, of course, but if let's say PSG were to lose, what would it mean?
Luis Enrique has cut himself out as one of the best coaches in Europe for a very lengthy period of time. He won the Champions League back in 2015 when he was coaching Messi, Suarez and Neymar. They beat Juventus by 3-1. On that day that I do not forget, the day when KCC played Villa in Ntungamo. And eventually the game was botched because of very, very poor refereeing, atrocious refereeing by Robert Doné. And I think he was under instructions from his bosses on that day. Luis Enrique has cut himself out as one of the best coaches. I think when I first watched him, and I did not watch him much when he played for Real Madrid, but at least I watched him when he played for Barcelona. In the latter time of his career, his understanding and interpretation of the game is very good. A third Champions League title would put him in a very exclusive club of coaches who have done that. The Ancelottis and Zidane and all the others, and Pep Guardiola, who have won this Champions League on 3 occasions.
Clubs,
But also, besides the coach, of course, the players going back to back. It's a huge legacy to become the second team after Real Madrid to win the title back to back. That would be quite something for their legacy. But also, when the Qatari owners, I think, purchased this club, this is where they wanted it to be. They wanted to be at the top of Europe, and they've tried so many ways to get it here. By signing, if you go back when PSG first got the money, they signed players like Javier Pastore. I don't know if people remember him, the Argentine. I know they've tried with Mbappe, with Messi, with Neymar, and none of that worked until they went back into the basics of building a team. So it will be a lot of satisfaction for the Qatari owners if they eventually get their hands on the second Champions League final. And you know their club president, Nasser El Khalifi, does not duck interviews with the media. He speaks as much as coaches and players speak. And so often, his words mean a lot. He's also been the chairman of the European Clubs Association for some time. So in terms of a legacy, I think those are the areas that PSG would tick. For the Arsenal.
Another party in Uganda.
First of all, the party in Uganda. I think Saturday night we need earbuds if you don't support the Arsenal. And then I can imagine what will happen on Sunday. I think there will be processions everywhere across the country on Sunday morning. And people who head to church on Sunday morning will have a lot of gifting to do to their reverends and fathers and preachers, whichever churches they go to. That will be a lot. But away from what it will mean for Uganda, Arsenal will have got a monkey off their back. Remember, Arsenal is a team that has played the most games in Europe without winning the Champions League. They are somewhere close to, I think they are close to 300 games in the Champions League in terms of games played without winning. So they'll have got that monkey off their back and saying Arsenal do not win in Europe. There was a time when it was very difficult. There's a time when no team that had never won the Champions League or the All-European Cup would win the Champions League. Until, of course, teams like Chelsea went and broke that, then Man City, then PSG. So it's no longer as hard as it used to be 20 years ago when Porto beat Monaco, yeah? That you had to have that word that people use, pedigree, yeah? That you had to have won the competition to be able to win it again. I think that is gone. Then for Mikel Arteta, in this moment, he could actually become arguably, if not the greatest manager that Arsenal has ever had.
Oh,
yeah.
Ahead of Arsene Wenger.
Ahead of Arsene Wenger. Yes, I've always argued that, for context, is that every coach comes into a job when the task is totally different. I think when Arsene Wenger came in, the job was totally different from Mikel Arteta's. His was to create stability and get the team back. And you remember the things he's credited for, Arsene Wenger is largely, first of all, to change the culture of a club, which he did with nutrition, to change the culture of how the game is played in England, and then, of course, to turn Arsenal from being boring to being entertaining, and he achieved that. And eventually, I don't think he won as much as he deserved for the changes that he brought to the game. But people who make an argument that this is the greatest Arsenal team will have a very compelling argument, because Mikel Arteta and his players will have delivered something that North London has never seen, or generations of North London have never seen. For them to win the league and cup double will be way out of the achievements of Arsene Wenger. And maybe thereafter, then they have to create an era to stamp that, where you go and win more than one league title. Because Arsene Wenger won 3 over a very lengthy period.
Yeah.
If you go back from 96 to
About
20,
11 years?
yeah, more than that.
Oh.
Yeah, from 96 to these 2000s, yeah, to over the 2010s, before he walked away. So they have an opportunity to create a legacy that at this point is unthinkable, that you'll have to see it, then to start to make a case. They win the Champions League, they'll have done something that Dennis Panka, Thierry Henry, Robert Pires, Vieira, Gilberto, Seaman, Jens Lehmann, Kolo Touré, Viltod, Sol Campbell, Ashley Cole never achieved in the Arsenal jersey. And then I've seen an online argument about how many of this team would get into the invisible squad. And then that argument can even go into overdrive.
I saw it as well.
Yeah, so I have a feeling that after Saturday, if Arsenal win, then there is a valid argument for this being the greatest Arsenal side.
The unforgettables.
Yeah. Whatever the word is, it must start with UN. There must be a prefix UN before the description. Whether this is the greatest Arsenal side or whether Mikel Arteta is the greatest Arsenal manager, I think those who will make that argument after winning Saturday should not be brandished as people who have not had a grounding in understanding the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's keep it here. We also have a Uganda Cup final, Villa versus Kitara.
Yeah.
No Vipers in the picture, but who do you think will win it?
Villa will be feeling very confident. I think they need a cup in their feather, a feather in their cap rather, to confirm the thing about everyone saying they've been the best side in the league. They play the best football. Their coach, the Serbian Kovacevic, has been credited by many and even been awarded in many areas as the coach of the season in the Uganda Premier League. But without some sort of crown, that argument will run out of legs. So they need to add a title to all the good things that we have said about AC Villa this season. That's one way to look at it. But the final arrives amid the things that make our football, our sport, sometimes become laughing stock. Remember, FUFA had earlier announced that the final will be played at the FUFA Kadiba Stadium.
Oh, yes.
And they did announce that upon the conclusion of the semi-finals, when we go to land, that it will be Kitara against Villa. Then Kitara write a letter to FUFA saying that would be giving Villa an advantage. After all, Villa play their home games at Kadiba. And many of us have argued that had this decision of announcing the date and venue for the final been made earlier without knowing which teams would be playing in the final, it would make a lot more sense, because then Kitara do not have to make an argument that FUFA is giving Villa an undue advantage. So they decide to move the game from Kadiba to Njeru, where the game will be played at the FUFA Technical Center in Njeru. So that's where the game will be played. Maybe the major advantage that also that Villa would have, rather that Villa will be losing, is that they play on an artificial surface at Kadiba. Now they are going to an AstroTurf in India. That place actually, the playing surface was redone because it had aged quite a bit. But to get back onto the beach, the one thing that you expect from a team that is coached by Wasabosa, and that is Kitara, is that they are going to show a lot of steel. The things we are mentioning about PSG and Arsenal that maybe they need to do, for Wasabosa they come a lot more naturally. As a player, he wasn't very flamboyant. The few times I watched him for Express, and I remember when he was summoned for Uganda Cranes by Paul Hasule back in 2003, everyone was asking, Bossa who? But the one thing that you know with Wasabosa is that his teams will put in effort, his teams will get physical, his teams will foul when they need to foul. Yeah, and sometimes that has not won him very many admirers. That his football can mean to be very dirty, and he actually pushes the envelope. Any team coached by Wasabosa lives on the edge when they are defending. So that's the one thing you'd expect for them to do. However, Villa would counter that with their pressing. One of the things they've done very well is that they press the ball very high up the pitch. And not many teams in Uganda can press the ball as well as Villa do. That's what the Serbian has made them do. They do create chances in an avalanche, but they do not bury their chances. They've not scored as many goals as their football desires, because they've had only the main out-and-out striker they've had is Frank Sebofu. Frank Sebofu, they got back from New York. Yeah, he had been playing at New York Red Bull too, and is their main striker there. Then you've got to think of Andrew Tim, who comes off the bench. Is the other one who they've used in most of the games when they are chasing or when they need to bring on someone off the bench. Most of their chances are going to come from their wingers. We've seen with Hassan Mubiru, who has scored some magical goals this season. We've seen with Najib Yiga, who has created their most chances in the league. We've seen with, what's the other boy's name? Aslam Semakula is the other one. And then they have some good things besides the hunt for goals that have been going for them, including some of their players being summoned to the national team. Because remember, the Uganda Cranes are going to be playing friendlies, and we'll be discussing those maybe in a subsequent show. Yeah. They are going to be playing friendlies sometime in June. They are going to be traveling to Morocco. But you have Barasa Mangoli, their defender, who has got a lot of praise from all quarters of the league for how good he's been defensively. And of course, their goalkeeper, David Lukwago. Part of the reason why they were here is made some critical saves at very key moments for Villa to stay in the competition. So, should be an interesting game. But because Villa do not score much, and Wasabosa never sets out to score many goals in the final, I wouldn't be very shocked that this goes into extra time and a penalty shootout, something like that. A very, very close game, as Kitara seek to win their second Uganda Cup. I remember they've won one before under Brian Senyondo, and Villa seeking to win their first Uganda Cup since 2015. So for everyone who makes their way to Njeru, if you think about a 3-2, 4-3 scoreline, I don't see that happening. Maybe a lot less. Villa do not score many. Wasabosa never sets out to score many. So very close game in terms of scoring.
Okay, well, for some people whom we would really hope score over the weekend, the Stanbic Bank Black Pirates, I saw them leave. I saw it on news. They were sent off by their sponsors, Stanbic Bank.
Yeah.
And what are their chances for this Enterprise Cup final?
They're up against it.
Yeah.
They're up against it, and they will need every ounce of energy from the fans. They will need every decibel for the Ugandans who are traveling, and those Ugandans will be traveling on Friday. They are going to be playing one of the stronger teams in Kenyan rugby over the last 10 to 15 years. Kabra Sugar, team that most of us started paying a lot of attention to when they started signing a lot of Ugandan players. Among those, of course, Philip Wokoracha, Asuman Mugero, and a few of the others. But the Stanbic Black Pirates have done a good job for themselves to put themselves in this kind of position in that Enterprise Cup. When they get to Ngong Road, I think none of the things they've done, some of the things they've done very well in the run-up to this will matter a lot. And one of them has been their tackling. I remember when they played at Wankulukuku in their first game, I think it was a quarter-final of this competition, the amount of steel that was shown by Alex Atorin and company in that back row for them to get a result and get through to the semi-finals. Marvin Odongo, their coach, would want a lot of this to stick, especially what they do defensively. That pitch at Ngong Road, the Rugby Football Union of East Africa grounds, is quite an expansive pitch. If you're used to playing very narrow, you may not get the kind of results you desire. So they must play a bit of expansive rugby. And I've mentioned one of them has got to be their tackling and defending. Two, they've got to stick to their structure. If they choose whichever way Marvin wants to go for that final, they've got to stick to it. And then you've got to get to the ball to some of your magicians. Thomas Chisiga is one of those. Recently awarded Most Valuable Player for 2015 in Ugandan rugby, is one they've got to get the ball onto if they're going to get some kind of attacking impetus. His ability to take on and beat players and get into space is going to be critical. And then you have William Onkore. When they get onto that tee and have an opportunity to put some points on the board, you cannot be wasteful in a fine of this magnitude.
Yeah.
Take all the small points, the penalties, and then you can add all the other things that come out of good at setting up very well in terms of attack to score tries. But it's going to be quite a task for them in Nairobi. Hopefully the numbers that have made it across the border from Uganda will also be very critical in terms of what Pirates get. Yeah, they traveled on Wednesday. Yeah, they actually had a party at what's a place called somewhere in Bugolobi. You know, Bugolobi has so many joints, like they're called. I think it's called Sisha Nyama Village. Yeah, that's the name. That's the name, yeah. I love to read only Nyama, not the first thing, yeah. But they had a party there to bring the fans and make everyone aware and mobilize people to travel for the game, and also unveil their 26-man traveling team for the game. So should be interesting. And for many here, I think they're already winners. Now they just need to add the icing sugar to that cake. We are very pleased they're in the final.
Yeah.
And it's a testament for the things that Pirates have done very well over a consistent period of time. From the moment they left Kampala Rugby Club and went to Boyogerere, they've done things to try and generate money, to bring in a lot of young players across the board. And the reward for that, and they have a very deep team. The reward for that is to get to an occasion like this and perhaps have the claim of being the best rugby side in the region. Yeah.
Well, giving the ball to a magician. I don't know. Interesting statement there. I don't know if that is what the Fountain of Honor has done in Uganda. We had a reshuffle recently. I didn't see your name on the list, but
maybe the one for RDCs, I'll be there. But even if I become RDC, I'll continue doing second take with IDK.
So Museveni, I don't know if those are magicians or tacticians, but in Uganda, under sport where we fall, it's still being led by the State Minister of Sports, Honorable Peter Ogwang.
From Ngariam County, the Member of Parliament. I thought was one of the things you cannot do in this country is to second guess President Museveni. Because he hardly takes the conventional route.
Yeah.
and he loved his surprise element, and perhaps that comes from his background of being a rebel.
Yeah.
Yeah. You always expect the unexpected. So none of us would have been shocked had the sports docket changed hands, and none of us would also have been shocked had it retained the same. But I can only read one thing from the retention of Peter Ogwang as the State Minister for Sports, and the Minister of Education and Sports, Janet Museveni, is that there is an AFCON coming up, and Ogwang has been at the center as the co-chairperson, and now because we haven't seen the Minister of Education and Sports in public for a very long time, almost entirely everything that is being done around the AFCON is being run by Peter Ogwang. So he's left in the same docket to be able to ensure that he delivers the AFCON. Remember, Uganda is building stadiums, is building over 9, should be 11 actually, the exact figure, of training grounds. They have an airport to do the Kabalega International Airport in Hoima. You have hotels that have received money from the Uganda Development Bank or Uganda Development Corporation, whatever you want to call it, to be able to upgrade hotels in Hoima. And the person who is in charge of overseeing that and central to it is the chairperson, who is Peter Ogwang. So I think he stays put in that ministry to deliver the AFCON. And that is whether a vote of confidence in him, only the president can answer that. But it's almost like you started a task, do it to the end, then we can have a conversation about how well you did. That's why he stays in the docket.
We're not people to gossip here on the show.
I resist it.
But at a dinner for the under-17s who came back after they're taking us to the World Cup in Qatar, the president of FUFA, Engineer Moses Magogo, said he has not been asked to resign. So in terms of continuity, I'm sure that is good. But where did the talk come from? Is it just social media that was saying that meetings were held and he has been asked to resign because of what is happening with in his private life? His wife is being investigated, or I don't know what the words are. Tell us, why did he have to come out and say?
There has not been even a government statement on the investigation into the former Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among Magogo. We have only seen confiscation of cars, and for many of us, I think, who live around town, a chance to see what a Rolls Royce looks like in reality, because we've seen it. Yeah, we've only seen it in the movies, so we haven't all had a chance to look at it from close quarters, and even some of those cars that were confiscated. But when that happened, all of us, I think, started to speculate about what this would mean for the future of the FUFA president, Moses Magogo. And some people have declared it a point of no return. I've said repeatedly that I wait to see how he survives this, because he's a man that I know. I've interacted with him for a very long time, and I'm talking about 15 years plus. Mago is a very intelligent person. When you get into an argument or a conversation with him, he will make cases and for many things. However, I've also argued, and previously I've said this on KFM, that the higher he's gone in the sphere of life, or in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where he's closing into the top of the pyramid, he's become a lot less accommodative of opinion, and he's adopted an approach, and I think that's why he's got there, where he does not take too much advice. And I'm talking about someone who I speak of as my friend. Yeah, and we've had a lot of conversation for so many years about so many things. So I've argued that I think this is going to be very difficult for him to survive, because the investigation, if eventually there is an investigation, and not just a show of might, yeah, where you ransack someone's house and carry cars, and then there is no government statement, there is no institution that is commenting, not the IGG's office, not Auditor General, not Parliament. No one.
IGG did say they have received, but they haven't.
That is all, yeah. So if there is an I do not see how the Speaker of Parliament is investigated and the husband is not. And for me, that's why the
Uganda,
argument
anything can happen.
Then,
In
where
Uganda,
did the
we
story...
don't have conflict of interest, I think. So many things. Sorry, go ahead.
No, he would ordinarily would be a beneficiary from the excesses, if there are excesses of the speaker. Yeah, he would be a beneficiary. Then there's people who do shows like ours, like this. So one of the former Uganda Cranes footballers, Mike or Sulaiman Mutiaba, whichever you want to call him. Those who know him as Mike for long, and those who know him since he converted to Islam, Sulaiman Mutiaba, has been on a tear for the past few years in a tirade that would push Magogo out of the office. And these days he carries even pictures, I'm told, of General Muhoozi Kainerugaba in his car. Yeah, he has pictures, and his profile pic actually is General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, the CDF. That's what is on Mutiaba's phone. So, ever since his challenges start, he went and declared that Magogo would not survive this and is gone. He's the first person I saw. Then last week on, actually this week, on NTV Sport Nights on Monday night, Clive Chaze, our colleague, went and declared that story that members of the PLU, the Patriotic League of Uganda, have asked Moses Magogo to resign in a meeting. So when and that thing went viral, everyone has shared it. I've seen people who have WhatsApp channels that broadcast sports and all kind of things have picked up that story and quoted Clive Chaze for having been the person who said that PLE has asked Magogo to resign. So when he came out on Tuesday, during the dinner on Tuesday, for the under 17 team, even used the word Tebaba Tisa Tisa. Yeah, I'm still here, and we have work to do.
I like that statement. We have work to do.
We have work to do. Of course, after Gwang is the next person in the AFCON hierarchy. And of the people I think on that committee, he knows more about football or AFCON in itself or the workings of CAF than everyone else on that committee. So he's made a declaration, and only time will tell if that declaration is actually right, that he's still in the job. And people have tried to make out scenarios. What if he resigns? What happens? What if he's pushed out? Or what if he jumps? What if he jumps before he's pushed? Yeah, whichever way you look at it, my intuition tells me he does not survive this. Yeah, that's what my intuition tells me. But that does not mean he won't survive it. Yeah, and some people, and I've seen a lot of people on social media throw names around, and Moses Magogo is not very popular as an individual. And I've seen him on some of his forums say that he knows what to do to be popular. And privately, I've told him, if you know the things to do to be popular, do them. Because many people do not find him very popular. And sometimes he can come off as very arrogant. He does not value the amount of information and the amount of time that people have put into football like he has. Yeah? Because he thinks he has dedicated a lot of time to sport, and people are commenting, are doing it after their carpentry, after their banking, after their driving, for whatever jobs we do, then casually they have an idea about how the game should be run. And he has dedicated a large part of his past 30 years to the game of football. So sometimes that arrogance does not come up well for many people. But he says he's here and he has work to do. So,
you know, I was wondering, as a graduate of FAMACO 1, we have not had FAMACO 2. FAMACO is a footballers administration and managers course that is run by FUFA, and it is almost mandatory for those who have not heard of FAMACO. Our viewer in
it's not mandatory for everyone who is in administration of the game today.
And if you really want to advance in anything football in Uganda, you have to do FAMACO.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, if Magogo leaves, what will happen to FAMACO? Will it continue? Because it's like his baby.
Yeah, it's his baby. No one knows what will happen to the course. But I think that's one of the smaller things. There's a lot of things.
No, I'm a stakeholder. It affects my life.
there's a lot of things that have happened around football that are entirely the creation of Magogo.
Yes.
Yeah? I know about his passion for television. And FUFA TV has been a big investment, taking money from FUFA coffers to run it. And he has even asked for an extra 15 billion from Parliament.
It doesn't
to
generate
capitalize
that much in sponsorship.
It doesn't generate much money currently. Yet we all know football belongs to TV. And we need someone to take the bullet and broadcast and have the pictures of television. So there's so many things I think that are his personal pet projects. Famako is one, FUFA TV is another. And then there is this thing of creating regional CEOs in all the areas and giving them 25 million every year to run their budgets and all. There are many things that I see that are his passion. However, one of the things I understand about life, and I've understood about life over time, is that life hits a vacuum. If you left today or tomorrow, there will be someone. Football will not stop. Yeah? The same way when Lawrence Mulindwa came in 2005 after Dennis Obu had been jailed, is that Lawrence Mulindwa emerged from, he wasn't even in football. Yeah, he wasn't even in football. In football administration, he was in the school setup with St. Mary's Chitende. But there had been people, Semanobe, there had been Michael Kiror, there had been many people before that. You could go back to my late uncle, Twa Kakaire. There had been many people who had been around the game and not him. Or what's that man, the gentleman from the West, Ruanika, Chris Ruanika, I think he's passed on. But there was someone still who came up. So regardless of the circumstances, someone will emerge and they will offer leadership and make a contribution.
Okay.
Yeah.
To New York now, New York Knicks, Donald Trump announcing he has been invited for the final.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. President Kagame was at the arena, what do they call it?
The BK Arena,
the BK
Bank of
Arena,
Kigali
and
Arena.
He was in as a normal, well, I'm sure there was security, but it wasn't that.
Never believe the optics.
I know.
It's very easy for MABEL to appear normal, but when they are within the security circles.
But he was mixing and mingling. At least there wasn't like.
Yeah, that was a game between RSSB Tigers and Al Ahly at the Basketball Africa League. Yeah. Yeah,
and so Donald Trump may be headed to New York for the final. But let's talk about OKC and Spurs.
He would. I want first to talk about Trump before we get to that. He would jump at the opportunity to watch an NBA game with all the attention that the man who was a judge of Apprentice Courts, the man from the celebrity world, the man from reality TV, I think would love that share of the limelight that New York Knicks are going to be having reached their first NBA final.
And he's a New Yorker.
Yeah, having reached their first NBA final in 27 years since 1999, and have not won a championship since 1973. So he would love that. And we saw, and he's very sporty because one, he supports golf, and he plays golf himself. We saw him at the Ryder Cup, and the inconvenience people faced when he came to the Ryder Cup because of the Secret Service, but how freely he was mingling with some of the golfers, the US golfers. Eventually they lost that. And we saw also at the FIFA Club World Cup, he was there for the opening and the closing ceremony.
Even tennis, I think American Open, did he go?
US Open?
US Open?
Previous, I think in his first term, not this one.
He was going to go,
eventually. So he's more sporty than most of the presidents we've seen. But it's also common for a US president to throw the first pitch at the Major League Baseball when the season is starting. So it's not too far-fetched that he would be going to New York. But the Knicks, who are in the NBA Finals, like we said for the first time in 27 years, are waiting for who they will play. Because the other finals is still far from decided. That is between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs. The Thunder currently lead that one by 3-2, having taken Game 5 where Victor Wembanyama was terrible for the Spurs. He was 4 for 15. He only sank 4 of his 15 shot attempts for 20 points, and actually of the 20 points, 12 of them were free throws. Missed 5 of his 3-point attempts in that game. So they have a Game 5 in San Antonio that they've got to win to force a Game 7 against the defending champions. And the defending champions are currently playing without Jalen Williams, who is the second, or you could call him the sidekick to SGA, the two-time reigning MVP. And SGA has had up and down in the entire series. In the latest Game 5, I thought it was brilliant. for his 27 points. But the San Antonio Spurs are in a spot of bother. And just to emphasize that they did not feel very good about that result, Victor Wembanyama refused to speak to the press. Ducked media day, or the media interviews that were supposed to do after the Game 5 loss. Wembanyama decided not to attend that. Luckily, he's not been fined. But even if he was fined, it would be very little money. It would be $50,000, which wouldn't be so much. But he's been warned against doing that again. Yeah, and eventually he could be fined if he does duck the next media engagement. So that's what is happening. And the Knicks will be resting. But the finals themselves, the NBA final will be starting on June 3rd. Yeah, that date has been penciled in for Wednesday, June 3rd. Once these guys are done with their Game 6 and Game 7, if it happens, then they'll be facing the New York Knicks. The first two games will be in the Western Conference for the finals. Yeah.
Okay. Now to why we should take note. It's transfer time. Interesting. Some bits of news that have been coming in. Well, I must say, Gordon to Barcelona and Enzo wants to leave Chelsea.
I was a bit surprised by the Anthony Gordon transfer, and it's happened very quickly. For £69.3 million, he's moving to Barcelona, and that perhaps is an indictment on Marcus Rashford, because the position is very similar. So Anthony Gordon is leaving Newcastle. He's looked very unsettled over the past few weeks or so, and there was a link to Bayern Munich, but eventually he's going to Barcelona. Will be a very good move for him. And Barcelona perhaps will do with a bit of his pace in that position. Then you mentioned Enzo Fernandez has asked to leave Chelsea, and Chelsea are willing to let him go, but they signed him for anywhere in excess of £110 million or £100 million ish. They want £120 million for him, for anyone who wants to take him. Remember, ever since he made that interview where he said that he loves the city of Madrid, there's been an uneasy relation between him and Chelsea. I don't know that Madrid are willing to spend £120 million on Enzo Fernandez to have him. But Chelsea are now willing to let him go. Now it's about the fee. How much is anyone willing to pay for Enzo Fernandez to join them? I think those are the two major ones. There's
Nuno staying with West Ham.
Yeah, Nuno Espirito Santo. He has declared that he's going to stay. I think that's one box ticked for them in the championship. They have a bigger chance of coming back to the Premier League with Nuno Espirito Santo as coach than if he had left and they had to bring in someone new.
Do you think he would fail to get a job? Or
he wouldn't. The coaching merry-go-around every day. These days coaches get jobs they seem to be the most available jobs in the world. You leave this job and you end up in another job.
Yeah. Who else?
Who else? You need to remind me, because there's a few other transfers. There's also one of Gabriel Jesus. Arsenal are willing to let him go for anywhere close to 18 and 20 million pounds.
Ederson.
Ederson, yes, to United, Replacing Casemiro has always been the next debate. There's talk that United are going to sign him for 38 million pounds. I think if it's a profile, because he's a defensive-minded midfielder, the old school number 6, what he lacks for me is the pace. Yeah? But United needed to sign someone in that position. And they are moving very quickly under Michael Carey to bring in Ederson. They solved that marginally, but I think they'll still need someone in that midfield besides Ederson.
Let's talk about Liverpool. Konate, Jones.
Yeah, there's two stories around that. One, Ibrahima Konate's contract runs out on June 30th. He's given an interview and said he wants to stay, but he hasn't signed yet. Now they've signed another French defender called Jeremy Jacquet, who is joining them next season. He's, I think, 19. He's one for the future. And he's given an interview where he stated that he can't wait to learn from Konate. Almost that is a hint that Konate has actually signed and the club has not yet just announced. But also, there's talk that Liverpool could lose Curtis Jones, that is frustrated with the kind of playing time, and his contract runs out at the end of next season, which is 2027. And Curtis Jones could leave the club this summer with 1 year left on his contract. But also, the story around Andy Robertson, who is left Liverpool and was given a farewell alongside Mohamed Salah, that is reached an agreement to join Tottenham Hotspur next season. And that will hurt a bit. If he had gone to a much lesser team, Liverpool fans would not mind that. But for him to then join
Tottenham, where they finished.
Yeah. Okay, they are much lesser team. They finished 17th twice in the last 2 seasons. But I think they will be much higher. And Robertson is a bit of quality added to their squad. He brings leadership. There's a lot they can learn from him because they have so many young defenders on that team that Robertson can take under his wing and teach a few things about playing at the top level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be bringing you more as the weeks go by during this holiday, during this break. That's all we had for you today. Do take care, stay safe, sanitize, and we shall see you, God willing, next week. Bye-bye.
Are you tired of the daily hustle and bustle, the endless traffic just to get your little one to a good school? GMS Bingo offers a unique blend of academic excellence with a holistic child development in both nursery and primary. We provide a national curriculum with an international touch. Enroll your child today by visiting our campus along Trinity College Bingo Road. GMS Bingo, where every child's potential is a reality. Because we care.